So we are getting close now. We are getting really close to leaving. So this is Saturday night. What does that make this? March 14th. So Sunday we're here, and then we are gone Monday morning. We don't really have a specific time Monday morning, just Monday morning. Going from here to Colonial Williamsburg will only take us 3.5 hours, which means worst case scenario 5 or 6 hours, which means don't really have to worry about it a whole lot. Planning to probably leave maybe like 10 o'clock. I figure if we leave at 10 o'clock that will be a good time to go. But yeah, we are really officially getting close. In about an hour and a half from now, we're going to have our goodbye dinner at the local sushi place, Sunny Sushi. Having quite a few people come there and wish us luck on our big adventure. So that's kind of weird. You know, that's when it starts to become real. It's so weird. When does an idea go from being fantasy to real? Where is that transition period? I guess we are in that transition period now. Because, I mean, the keys have been handed off. We're about to have our goodbye dinner. Things have been given away. Lots and lots of stuff has been given away. The camper is packed up. So we packed up the camper mostly today. There's a few things left that need to be put in the camper, but overall, the travel trailer, but overall, it's basically in there. And I do have to say, I'm kind of surprised, but we seem to have more than enough room. Shockingly. And we're taking a decent amount of stuff. I mean, I'm taking 10 shirts, basically 10 outfits, I guess. Maybe not so many jeans, but shirts and coats. I have like 5 or 6 coats, and we're taking computer laptops, and we're taking all kinds of like hiking backpacks. And we got like 5 different backpacks in there. Tent, sleeping bags, chairs. We're taking quite a bit of stuff, and all the kitchen utensils and all that kind of stuff we need. And interestingly, curiously, we still have a decent amount of space left in that travel trailer. So something to think about. Like when you ask yourself, how much space do you really need? We are going from 3,600 square feet of usable house to a travel trailer. You know what I'm saying? It is curious. And it's one of those things, like why I try to be honest with you guys about this type of thing is just to show you that really some of these things that we think are so important in life and some of these things that we think will make our life better, really it's not necessarily so. There's this idea if you have a bigger house or nicer stuff or all those things that somehow life is wonderful. And I have to tell you, sitting here, right now I'm on a deck, so you can see the railing of my deck, right? My deck is 1,000 square feet. I have 1,000 square foot deck. That's my deck. That's not the house. That's not the house. And I have to tell you, being here, I'm really looking forward to going into a travel trailer. Because what you realize is all this stuff is just stuff. And what's sad, I see so many people lust after the stuff and get jealous. That's the thing, like if you want this type of thing, if you want 1,000 square foot deck, I have a house to sell you, right? I'm not against it. You know, a lot of people out there think, I'm trying to talk about being anti-materialistic or any of that kind of thing, and I'm really not. If you want a big house, by all means go out there and get a big house. But what I see is so many people out there, they think they want these things, and then they work so hard, and they get so jealous, and then they get so angry that they don't have it. And one of the things I'm just trying to point out to you guys is you may not actually want it. In all seriousness, because I try to be honest as possible with you folks, is that even once we get off the road, because obviously at some point we'll get off the road, whether this lasts for a year or 5 years or 5 months or 5 days, we will get off the road. But even when we do get off the road and we decide to settle down in a house or apartment again, it really is. I'm looking at 1,000 square foot houses. You know what I'm saying? And truly and honestly, and it's not being melodramatic, and I'm not getting on my high horse, and I'm not being a hippie or a hipster, and I'm not talking about the ecology, and I'm not talking about climate change, and I'm not talking about Al Gore or any of that horse crap. What I'm telling you folks is a person that can actually afford this, balls to this. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you get this, and all of a sudden you're just, there's so much work and there's so much effort, and all of a sudden you have house cleaners, and all of a sudden you have people taking care of your lawn, and then also all of a sudden not only do you have people taking care of your lawn, but then you have to have landscapers, and not only landscapers are this and that, and all of a sudden you guys know how much I like employees, and all of a sudden you have employees in your house. And so just one of those things to think about for you folks is, are you jealous because you don't have something you probably don't want anyway? Just one of those things to ponder. Just kind of one of those things to ponder in life. Because I really have turned down a lot of money this year. At the end of last year, I really did turn down, or I got rid of, actually. I mean, these were people already paying me. This wasn't possible sales. This wasn't sales in the pipeline. This was checks already getting sent to me. And I turned down $60,000 worth of checks because I started to look around and go, yeah, yeah, it's more money, but, is that really making life any better? And so something to think about, because I see that so much in our society, where everybody wants, and then you're like, hey, if you actually get that thing, you're probably not going to want it. Just saying. Again, nothing against really big houses. If you want a really big house, I have one for you. It's beautiful. It has new siding. It has a new 1,000 square foot deck. All yours. Very reasonable price. But yes, we will be away from here shortly in a tiny little travel trailer that is literally, we were looking at it today. The travel trailer square footage is about the size of our master bedroom, or bathroom. Not bedroom, bathroom. And that sounds really nice. And I'm just trying to put that out there for a lot of folks. Just something to think about, because so many times when people talk this way, it's missionary type stuff, it's propagandist type stuff, it's proselytizing, make the world a better place, what about climate change, what about this, what about the other thing, and so many people don't listen to it because they don't want to be proselytized to. We don't really care about climate change, let's be honest, right? We don't really care about a lot of these things. So when people say, oh, it just gets ignored. And so what I'll just throw out to you guys is, as somebody that can have this, yeah, it's not so fun, to be honest with you. It's not, no, you can have it back. I will go, yeah, the world can have this back. But anyways, so as we get close, I've been thinking about some of my old stories from like back in the day. So as I've told you guys, doing adventuring and just going off into heaven knows what is one of those things that I do. This is what we are doing now, is a little bit more upscale version of what I have done all of my life. And I was thinking back on the first trip that I ever took. So back when I was 18 years old, I threw everything into my really crappy Toyota Tercel. I had this blue Toyota Tercel hatchback. Threw everything into it and decided I was gonna go west. I was gonna go to California and see what adventures I could have there. And I did end up having adventures. Of course, being my life, they are not the adventures you would expect. Had to do with militias and gun shops and lots of very interesting things, but definitely not anything that you guys would expect. Those will be stories for another day. But what I was thinking about with going off and traveling was on either side of the trip, when I left and then when I came back, and the conversations that I had with friends before I left and before I came back, and why what you promise is so important, and how what you promise and then what you don't follow through with, how this follows you for the rest of your life, really. So when I was going out to California, I told everybody I was going out to California, basically throwing all my stuff in the car. I got my like $1,000 in cash and I'm gonna go. I wasn't even trying to find my fortune back then. This was before the days of finding fortune. I was just gonna go find something. Like, I was sitting there and I was thinking about it, and I was sitting in a rented room. So I moved out actually when I was still 17 years old, and so I've been living on my own for about 9 months at that point. When I was 18, and it was like January time frame, and I was in this rented room, and I was thinking about what was I doing, and then it just went through my head, and I was thinking about it, and I thought, didn't I always want to go to California? And I was like, yeah, I did always want to go to California. And from the point that I had that thought to the point that I was leaving for California was all of about 6 days. I swear to you, I literally I went to bed that night thinking about California, woke up in the morning, went to the landlady and said, I think I'm going to leave at the end of the week. I then went to my job and said, I'm going to be quitting in 3 days. And then I packed everything up in my car and went to California. Oh, one of the reasons my father almost lost his damn mind with me as a young adult. I remember pulling into his house in West Virginia and talking to him, and he was just looking at me, and he said, I don't understand, why are you going to California? And I looked at him and said, because it's California. And he said, do you have friends in California? No, not really. Do you know where you're going to work in California? No, not really. Do you know where you're going in California? Dad, you think I know where the hell I'm going in California? Of course not. And then he looked out at my crappy Toyota Tercel that was, like 11, 12 years old or whatever at that point. And he looked and he said, do you know if your car can make... And I remember this, and there's those times when you're young and the young male and the old male are sitting there, and there was that stare that goes between them, and there is that moment. And I remember he looked at me, and he looked at this crappy ass Toyota Tercel, and he said, Eli, what happens if you break down halfway there? And he thought this was a very reasonable argument to get me to not go. And I looked at him square in the eye and said, well, I guess I'll hitchhike. Oh, my poor father. And at that point he realized it wasn't that he lost the argument, but there was really no more argument for him to have. And I think we kind of went to bed that night being all silent, like, got a hug and a handshake in the morning, and off I went. But before I got to West Virginia, I was talking with my friends about going on this great adventure. And the thing that I'll remember is so many of my friends and so many people that I knew at the time said, Eli, this is amazing, this is awesome. If you need anything, make sure to call and I'll be there for you, right? I'll fly for you, I'll send you money, I will do whatever you need. I had a few people say this, big bravado, you're going across, we're here for you, right? This was back when I still had a lot of friends, because I still thought having lots of friends was actually worth a damn. So they were all, we're here for you, we'll do anything you need, blah, 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 right? So I go out to California, get out to California, find this place. Actually, one of my friends was already in California, find this place, decide I will settle down in that little area. That's entirely own little story for another day. So I decided to settle down in this little area. Basically, I can walk into a job in a gun shop. Story for another day. And so I'm doing there, and I'm working in the gun shop, and I'm doing this and that and the other thing. The gun shop isn't really paying me very well, plus they're kind of insane. So I decided to go and do pizza delivery. So before I had gone off to California, I'd done pizza delivery driving. Paid really well, to be honest with you. So I decided I'd go do pizza delivery. So I go to the local pizza delivery joint. They say, yeah, we're happy to hire you. We just need your driving record, right? All we need is your driving record. So I think, okay, no big deal. So I call up my buddies back in Maryland who had said that they would be there, we're here for you. And I say, hey guys, I'm really kind of screwed, because remember, this is back in the 90s. So this was 94, 95. So long before the internet that most of you guys understand. So you couldn't just go on the internet and get something like a document. You actually had to go in person to get things like these kind of documents. So I call up my buddies and I say, hey guys, I need my driver record. Like I'm out here, I don't have a California driver's license. I've still got my Maryland driver's license. All I need for this job, all I need to pay the bills, make some good money is my driving record. Can you just go to the DMV? Because anybody can actually get your driving record. Get me my driving record, send it out here. I mean, that would be awesome. That would be great. You know, I'll pay you back, so on and so forth. And well. So I get all these wells, right? You guys had said you would do anything for me. And then I get one person who's like, yeah, I'll do that for you. Great. Says he's going to do it. Like 2-3 days later, hadn't heard back from him. Call him up. Hey, man, what's going on with my driving record? Yeah, I'm going to get that for you. Week goes by. Hey, what's going on with my driving record? Yeah. After 3 weeks, 3 effing weeks. So I tell these people, you know, in order for me to pay rent out here, I need to have my driving record so I can get this job, right? Not asking the world out of anybody. Just go down to the DMV, get it, send it to me. And again, this is from people that said they would do anything for me. Anything you need, man, we're there for you. After 3 weeks, I finally get on the phone with this guy and basically read him the Riot Act and explain some things in very simple language. And so finally, at about the 4th week mark, a month after I'd started asking somebody to help me out with it, I finally get this thing in the mail. And basically did a lot of damage to that particular relationship. And again, it wasn't one of those things that I even thought it was a relation. Like, I didn't think there would be any damage with a relationship. I thought I would just call up and say, hey, can you get this for me? And in a few days it would be sent, and it would be no big deal, because it really was no big deal. You just walk in, you drop a couple bucks, you get somebody's driving record, you ship it off. Again, it takes a little time. And that was one of the things that I learned, is that all these people would say that they would be there for me, and they say they would do all these things, and they would talk and talk, but then when it comes time to actually do anything, it was a royal and utter pain in the ass. And so even the person that finally, after twisting his arm, after damaging our relationship beyond repair, finally gets it to me, really have probably very little respect for that person, because I had to go through all of that effort just to get something that I was told outright would be nothing. If you need anything, it's done. It's done for you. And I compare that to my other buddy. So once my little California adventure was over, I was coming back, same Toyota Tercel, driving back cross country to, what are they called? CV joints? These little joints on the front wheels that were going bad. They were like squeaking to all hell and back. And so apparently I shouldn't have been driving them at that point, but oh well. So I was driving back. So I was going to go back from California all the way back to Maryland, and some things had happened. And remember, I was sitting there, I was talking to one of my friends, new friends that I had made in California, and we were talking about this, and we were talking about that, and we were talking about back east, as they call it, back east. And so I'm leaving. It's the final day, and I'm leaving. And so we're shaking hands, and we're talking about all the stuff. And I remember, he looks at me, and he says, if you need anything, if you run into any problems out there, and then he stops. He's like, if when you're out there, when you're driving, if you run into any problems, and then he stops. And then he looks over it. He had this Toyota truck that was just archaically old at this point. I think that he called her Amanda, right? He had this truck, and it was like one of those trucks you have when you're young, right? It keeps going almost because of wish and duct tape. Like, yes, it keeps driving. Yes, it does continue to get you to point A and point B, but at a certain point, you're not really sure why the engine still turns over. And so he's like, if you, I'm about to leave, and he looks at me, he's, if you need anything, if you need any help, and he looks over at his truck, and he says, looks back at me and says, up until the California border, I'll be there for you. And I looked at him, I smiled, and he said, hey man, look at my truck. I trust it to get to the California border and back again. Once you hit Nevada, you're on your own. But until you hit the California border, if you need anything, man, give me a call. We'll work it out. I made it to the California border, and I made it all the way back. But I tell you, to this day, that man still has my respect. To this day, that man still has my admiration. because he was willing to take that moment to think about what he was actually offering. Instead of offering the world with no intention of actually providing it, he thought about it for a second. He sat there and he looked at me and he looked at his own vehicle, his own resources that he had, and he said, I want to help you, but I know my own limitations. I know how far I can go, and I know how far I can't. The California border, right? And so I will help you to the California border. Once you get past the California border, you are on your own. I wish you the best, Godspeed, but I can't help you past then. And to this day, he has my respect and he has my admiration because he was willing to limit himself. Instead of getting into bravado, instead of talking a big game, instead of pumping himself up and making himself feel so cool and awesome, right? He was just willing to say, you know, this is what I can offer. This is what I can provide. If you need any more than that, I can't help you. And so I think about that story as we're about to go off on this travel trailer trip. Thankfully now I am in a financial position. I don't have to worry about people coming to get me with trucks that can barely get to any borders. But it's one of the stories that I think is very influential in my life. And if you ever hear the pet peeves that I have, and if you ever hear the things I get angry about, that's one of the things that I get angry about, is all these people that talk a big game. Man, yeah, I'm so cool. I'm there for you. I promise, 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 promise. And then you go to ask them for something that should be relatively simple. They promised you the world, right? If they promised you, the California border, that's one thing. But they promised you the world. Anything you need, man, I'm there for you. And then you're like, hey, I need like 2 hours of your time. Right? So just something to think about as you go out there and as you interact with people and as you deal with people is realize your words matter. Realize your promises matter. Realize that people will respect you more for restraining yourself. If you sit there and you promise exactly what you are able to offer, people will respect you more. Because if you promise the world and somebody actually needs help and you do not fulfill, you are literally a piece of garbage. Somebody has bet that you will live up to the words that you said, and you just walk away from them. Yeah, patosh, right? So something to think about in this last day and a half or so before this great adventure begins. A great adventure begins. It is funny. It's funny being 38 and looking back at all these adventures. The first time I threw everything into the car and went off to California, or going into the military, or throwing everything in the car and going to Seattle, or going off to Europe, or going off to India, or doing this or doing that, going off to Thailand. It's so funny to be at the age where there's all these old stories. Like I remember when leaving for adventures, everything was completely new. There weren't previous stories because I hadn't actually lived any of those previous stories. And so it's interesting now to be going off and to be thinking about all these times, to be thinking about how this is different and the same from when I first traveled to California, and different than the same than going to Seattle, or different than the same from Europe or India or Thailand or any of those places. I wonder how this will end. All of my little adventures had very different endings. Some were good, some were not. I am curious to see in a year or 2 or 3 or 5. I'm kind of curious to see how this whole little adventure wraps up. But with that, what did I say? This is March 13th, Saturday night, March 13th. Decent weather out here, as you can see. It's like 50 degrees, I guess, but it's kind of cloudy and rainy and all that. So it's very beautiful. It's very beautiful. Feels very nice. And yeah, getting close. Literally tomorrow we just have to pack a few things more in the trailer. Then I have to flush out the trailer's water system. So the trailer has been what's called winterized. So what they do is they put like this weird alcohol solution in all of the pipes to make sure nothing freezes and breaks. So what I have to do is I have to connect the trailer up to a garden hose, and essentially all you're doing is flushing out the entire system. So I need to flush out the entire system tomorrow, kind of batten down the hatches on the travel trailer, and then Monday we leave. Oh, oh, March 13th, 2016. How will I look back on this day? Because it is funny. You really don't know. Again, maybe there will be more stories to tell as I go on this adventure. But all the adventures have ended completely differently. No adventure turned out how I expected. And I know that sounds cheesy. I know that sounds like something that I'm supposed to say. But really and honestly, it's true. Every single time I've done something like this, I've just gone out and just found that the world works in ways that I had no idea, no expectation of. So I'm curious to see, March 13th, 2016, how will I be looking at the world?